No, I have to set it up before y'all get there. That's what I'm saying. Hey, Jonathan. Hello, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
Hi, everyone.
Good afternoon. How are you?
Doing well. Thanks for asking.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope everybody is doing well. I just received a message from Ms. Keisha saying that we are now at quorum. So we will begin our meeting. I will calling the November 13th, 24 meeting to order at 3:04. November is National Homeless Awareness Month. Woo, we celebrate ourselves. As we observe Homeless Awareness Month, we want to take a moment to thank each of you for your unwavering dedication and hard work in advocating for those experiencing homelessness. Your effort plays a vital role in bringing awareness to this important issue in working towards ending homelessness in our community. We appreciate everything that you do to make a positive difference in our lives, in the lives of individuals and families in need. So thank you for your continued commitment and passion. So let's give a round of applause for our hard work, all the things that we have done. We really appreciate you. Okay. Some housekeeping. If HSAC members, will you please add HSAC to your name? Please fill out the sign-in form locating in the chat. And some reminders, remember to stay muted unless speaking. Raise your virtual hand to ask a question. The community development team will monitor the chat for questions. And before we begin our HSAC meeting, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge Commissioner Carter for her dedication and commitment to HSAC. This will be her last meeting as our liaison, and we want to express our sincere appreciation for her hard work and service. Thank you, Commissioner Carter, for everything that you've done. You will truly be missed. Let's hear it for Commissioner Carter.
Thank you, Commissioner Carter.
Oh, thank you, guys. I just want to be clear. You are the ones doing the real work, the important work. I've tried to show up and be your cheerleader and a champion for the work that you do. It's so very important. Ebony and I were talking earlier today about our future and additional challenges that we're likely to see. And I really encourage you all to hang in there, work together, stay together. And here in Durham, we are unified in the struggle. And we need to remember that where there's many, many more things and values that keep us, that unify us rather than divide us here in Durham. So let's keep on keeping on and let the low side drag if we have to. But I just am grateful and so privileged to have been able to work with you all, to get to know you some, learn about your work. I appreciate the time with you so much.
Thank you, Commissioner Carter. All right, so back to business. We are transitioning our HSAC meeting to a webinar format starting in January. This change is aimed to making meetings more effective and focus on the agenda. We encourage everyone to join one of the following committees: policy and planning or performance management. This new format is not to limit your input. We want to hear from you. We still want to hear from you. Please submit any thoughts or concerns through public comment. A member of the community development team has already put that in the chat, and just click it, and so you can submit your public comment, and more information will be shared soon. Okay, moving to public comment. Are there any public comments at the moment?
None that have signed up via the form as of yet.
As of yet, okay. Thank you. All right, we're gonna move to the approval of minutes. Members should have received the September meeting minutes yesterday through email. Are there any corrections or edits?
Ebony, I do want to just point out, Dorothy Harden has her hand up. I'm not sure if that's related to public comment or not.
Thank you. Ms. Dorothy?
Yes, I would like to make a public comment, but I wait until a more appropriate time. If you can state what you need to state, and then I can come in afterwards. It might take
It's okay, we can come back to the approval of minutes. You can go ahead.
Okay, you know what? I'm actually wrote something that I wanted to say, so I'm gonna go ahead and print that. Can we come back to me?
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
you're welcome. All right. Okay. Approval of minutes. Are there any corrections or edits? If not, okay.
I move for us to accept the minutes.
Thank you, Sharita. Do we have a second?
I second Helen Troop.
Thank you. All in favor indicate yes in the chat, against, no, or abstain as needed. Okay, September minutes have been approved. We're gonna move to perform, I'm sorry, Miss Dorothy, are you ready? Miss Dorothy, if you're speaking, you're on mute. Are you ready to share your thoughts and concerns?
Perhaps she stepped away to go to the printer.
I apologize. I went to the printer. Can I get a minute? Because I'm actually gonna read from this paper with my public comment. If that's okay?
Okay. Anthony, we'll turn it over to you for performance management update, and we'll come back to Ms. Dorothy.
I am happy to talk performance management updates. I thought I was going to talk about the homeless visual. Keisha, is it both or just one thing?
Now that I'm looking at the agenda, it's both for performance management quarterly report and the homeless remembrance.
Okay, all right, very good. We had a performance management committee meeting recently where we did sort of a deep dive into the role of the committee as outlined in the governance charter, and also what activities would be coming up in the next couple of months, and then an outlook of all of next year. So we are entering a series of office hour sessions with performance management members, as well as homeless service providers that are members of our COC. There will be 4 sessions over the next month. And throughout that time, we will be discussing the upcoming 2025 performance evaluations, the performance metrics, the scorecards, which are the tools that will be used to evaluate the performance of the programs that are currently in our COC. And the role of the Performance Management Committee is to work with the providers to come to consensus about what those performance metrics should look like for our Durham COC. So that activity will be happening over the next month, and hopefully by December, no later than January, the 2025 scorecards and all of the performance metrics and everything will be outlined, and we will move into a year of activity. Just FYI, next year, around February will be the first semi-annual evaluation of all of the projects. And then we will have a Housing First evaluation in May. We usually do state ESG review around July and August. We just finished a 2-year COC, so we don't expect, unless there's a special NOFO release, that there will be any COC competition activity next year. But we do expect for there to be renewals for everyone next year. And then the second semi-annual performance evaluation happens in August as well. And then we will start again for 2026 around this time next year. So that's what performance management is up to over the next month, is that we'll be working with the providers to develop consensus and enhance the scorecards in any way that's going to be meaningful to give everybody a great shot at performing well in the coming year. Did you want me to go directly into the homeless vigil, Ebony?
Ms. Dorothy, are you ready?
Yes, thank you. I want to thank you all for being here today and for contributing to this subject that's very important and has been a concern of all of ours. Before I provide the statement, I would like to address the elephant in the room. We're discussing hard topics that we're trying to band together to find solutions to address and tackle the prevention of homelessness for the people that are impacted by homelessness. We're trying to find ways to best meet and assist the needs of the people so emotions may run. That is not uncommon and is to be expected due to the nature of the subject. We are all here to contribute to the prevention of homelessness and to address this crisis we're currently facing. We will mention problems and share ideas that may make some uncomfortable, but this is an uncomfortable topic. And anyone that speaks, provides ideas and shares valuable ideas. We need to support each other because we're all here for the same reason, which is to address and assist in the prevention of homelessness. Sometimes things got to get bad before they get good. And with that, my statement is, I believe that it's important that I share this information with you due to the importance, seriousness, and great need for the government to work on getting a state-funded and state-regulated shelter. Theodore Roosevelt once said, and I agree, it is the responsibility of our state to house its citizens. FDR shown the great responsibility to create a program that would take care of citizens. He developed Social Security during the Great Depression. You see, there's a problem. You see, there was a problem. And as the president, the government seen it as a social justice and a responsibility of the government to act and care for its citizens. You see this in history, that there were always problems, but the government, along with others, band together to find solutions to resolve them, not put a bandage on it. The government took responsibility. I am not saying that you all are the correct parties to speak to the correct parties to speak to make this claim / request. Maybe you are, maybe you aren't, or need to escalate this. Given the fact that this is the Homeless Advisory Board, this is appropriate to mention this problem. The government must act or this will get worse and will encourage abuse from non-for-profit agencies that are not regulated, but serve the public, putting citizens at risk for abuse, oppression, and modern-day slavery. What President Theodore Roosevelt believed, which I believe as well, which is true and relevant today, is that the government has the right to regulate big business to protect the welfare of its citizens. At Durham Rescue Mission, recipients cannot have outside jobs, and if they do, they must give it up to work for Durham Rescue Mission for $15 a work week for $15 a week for 40-hour work week. They must give up their vehicles. They must give up their vehicle and lose all independence, forcing them to solely depend on the agency and work for $15 a week and 40 hours work week. All this to depend on the agency and work for 15 hours a week. All this not to be on the street and to avoid homelessness. When the county or state do not make provisions to take care of their citizens, to meet their need, it leaves room for so-called non-for-profit agencies to come in and abuse vulnerable citizens and take advantage of our citizens' disadvantage, leaving non-for-profit organizations that serve the public authority to abuse, capitalize off the vulnerability of our residents, enforcing and imposing their beliefs on them enforcing and imposing their beliefs on them, possibly violating federal and civil laws because they are being discriminated against because of their sexual orientation and forced to conform to a religion or a belief that they might not want to, but do so because of desperation, need to survive, and need for shelter. I urge all members of this committee, parties of this homelessness, I apologize. I urge all members of this committee, parties of homeless prevention, to read this article, pictures, and assess what is right, wrong, and necessary to prevent this abuse as we go forward as a homeless committee to address these issues and rectify problems concerning this agenda. I will be putting pictures in the chat box as well as the link to the article. And if you guys have any questions, please let me know. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dorothy, for your public comment. Thank you so much. Anthony, we can now hear regarding the homeless remembrance in December.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to give everybody sort of an early heads up. We are in the planning stage of the annual homeless vigil, which occurs in December every year. This is typically planned by Brianna Van Velzen at Durham Congregations in Action, and Julia Gamble and myself will be involved in the planning as well. It's a beautiful remembrance ceremony. I don't have the flyer or the dates yet. We will send those out when available, but we wanted to give just an early reminder and heads up that that is coming one evening in December, and would love all of you to participate and show up as we honor those whose lives were lost either during their stint with homelessness or at some point within the last year or two of their homeless episode. So just a heads up that that'll be happening in December, and to be on the lookout. We will send it out by email when it's available.
Thank you for that update, Anthony. We're now going to turn it over to Sharita for the city and county budget request for homeless system funding.
Hello, everybody. So I am coming to you to talk about the budget request for the homeless system funding to city and county government. This issue was on our agenda for our policy and planning meeting on Monday, November the 4th. We had a very robust conversation, but in our previous meeting in October, the group was polled, and the group was polled, and we were trying to identify like our top 4 areas of concern for our continuum and what our needs are. And those 4 items were diversion, maximizing current emergency shelter beds, and that number 2 had several pieces to it. So it was an A, B, and C. Safe park and pallet homes was on that list under maximizing our current shelter beds and increasing our emergency shelter beds. And the tents. So all of those kind of fell under that one line item about maximizing our emergency shelter beds and increasing capacity. Number 3 was day center services, and number 4 was street outreach. And so in the spirit of that poll we did in October, we as a policy and planning committee decided that those were the areas where we wanted to focus some our ask to city and county government. We have asked community development to come back to us with some data around those 4 areas in our December meeting for us to address. And I want to say there was a 5th item that we added to that group. I have exit strategies written in my notes, but I don't know if anybody else from policy and planning remembers if exit strategies was the 5th item we decided to add to our list of priorities.
Other members of policy and planning, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe, yes, we did decide to add exit strategies as the 5th item.
That's what I have in my notes. I just haven't gotten the formal minutes to know if that's correct, but that's what I have written on in my notes. And we were thinking about the discussions about exit strategies was about move on. How do we graduate people from permanent supportive housing to other kinds of housing so that we can move more people into permanent supportive housing? Because right now we are bottlenecked with our permanent supportive housing. There's no movement. People are just like there and staying there. So trying to figure out ways that our system can move people who no longer need the support of PSH out of the PSH unit so we can bring more people in. So those were the 5 areas. And so in our December meeting, community development will come back and give us some information for us as a policy and planning committee to do some work around what an ask would look like to be presented to HSAC in the December meeting. Is that correct, Colin?
Yes, ma'am. That was the plan, was the committee asked the community development staff to run some numbers and scenarios for the policy and planning committee to discuss at the December meeting, and then to bring a recommendation to the full HSAC at the December meeting, or at the very latest, the January meeting, to be sure that we got a request into the city and county in time for the budget's season.
So what I will just add in addition, that if we have any community members or other HSAC members who want to influence that ask, it would be very nice to see your face and hear your voice in our policy and planning meeting in December to make sure we get it right. We really want to get this right. We really want to get this right. In that discussion, we talked about, this 2-tier need for yes, some strategic planning, but we also need to figure out what to do now because our numbers are growing astronomically. We had 51 families this week reporting literal homelessness in Durham, with 30 on the wait list within 14 days. So our numbers are growing, and we need to figure out how to stop the bleeding. I don't know if Colin has anything he wants to add to this particular item on the agenda. I do want to come back to you guys because we also promised as a policy and planning committee to talk about the housing bond units in our meeting in October. It was on the agenda. It was last on the agenda, and we didn't have a lot of time to go get into it. And so I don't have anything to report to you concretely from that discussion other than what we talked about last month, being internally community development is looking at ways to kind of track all of the bond units more accurately, so to make sure that we don't miss out on units and that we as a continuum are aware when units come online so that we can take advantage of any of the units that have a preference. So in saying that, I want to invite folks to come to December's policy and planning meeting because the housing bond units discussion will continue in our December meeting. I don't know if there are any questions, any comments or anything like that, but that concludes my piece of the report.
Sharita, Russ has his hand raised.
Just
Hi, Russ.
a quick question, I think more for Colin, and this is kind of future focused. When this year, when did the request come from the city? When does the request come from the county for any budget proposals? When is that due? Just so we know for next year, it almost sounds like we should be having discussions summertime and planning. So can you just kind of name that out so we have it in our heads for future years, so that we're doing good catch up, I think, but so we can plan a little better, more strategically for the future.
So I don't know the county's schedule. The city has and I may ask if City Manager Page is here, she might be able to help correct me if I misspeak. So Wanda, if you don't, would you like to take this one and explain the budget time, or you want me to try and take a crack at it?
You go right ahead and I'll pop in if needed.
Thank you, ma'am. So the city, there's a multi-step, multi-month process to developing a city budget. And from my understanding, we start with departmental requests that come up from the departments through the city manager's office and budget and all of that. Those are, as departments within the city asking for employees, asking for other capital improvements, asking all that, that goes through. As that goes through the process, there's a participatory budgeting process, which begins sort of in that January timeframe. The final budget doesn't get approved until June. So the full budget works through the city council members, bring their wish lists to the budget. And there's a whole lot of discussion that happens sort of in that January to May timeframe to flush out what will make the final budget. So for HSAC, looking at getting requests to city council and county commissioners in that December timeframe is our ideal. I would say January might be pushing it a little bit, but it's a whole lot better than what we've done in the past. In the past, our budget requests from HSAC have kind of gone in the March timeframe, which is a lot further into the budgeting cycle and miss a lot of that beginning conversation pieces. So that's my rough understanding of the city budget process. So to your point, Russ, some of this, yes, if we could start that during the July timeframe where we're on break, maybe in August, but you also have to keep in remember that's high time for state ESG and COC competition. So we may have to back this up and start budget planning in March or April for the following budget cycle.
That's helpful. And then how, if I can just, how worked out does a proposal need to be? I asked that because I'm thinking, and maybe this is a manager page question more like, does the street department show up and say, hey, we want to do 20 miles of roads next year, give us a block of money and we'll figure out which ones to do? Or is there more of a plan of here's the ones we're trying to address? I mean, like where do we need to be aligned? I mean, obviously we'd be going into RFPs, but something more concrete than, hey, we'd like flexible money, flexible subsidies, like how worked out do we need to be? That may again speak to our timelines for future planning.
So certainly by, as Colin has mentioned, the city's official budget kickoff is in January. It's the first week of January. And new budget requests are taken, during that time frame, and they do have to be fleshed out enough to be analyzed, by the budget management services department. What does analyze mean? It means, it's not just a bucket of money or just an allocation. It has to have the components if a new request is ongoing, or if it is a one-time request, if it involves personnel, what the potential salary amount might be for such personnel. So it is both narrative and, and dollars that are attached to that. Without that, the staff that, spends time, prioritizing or making recommendations to the manager and ultimately to the council, they don't have enough information to be able to prioritize it if they don't know enough about the initiative in order to do that. So it is not just an allocation. It needs to be as detailed and fleshed out as possible so it can, it can be described as that pyramid sort of goes up and the priorities come forward. Earlier in the fall, as Colin is mentioning here, there are some what we call sort of pre-budget asks where ideas that are not quite fleshed out do come forward, but it shouldn't stop with that because then it gets behind the more fleshed out initiatives. So even now in November and December, budget requests can be presented through departments. But the work doesn't need to stop with just an idea. It needs to be continuously fleshed out during the process. The council normally meets in February or March to, discuss priorities with the administration so that the administration has time to balance the budget, by the time that budget is presented in May. So once it gets started, the ball moves, pretty quickly. So it does need to be pretty fleshed out early. Hopefully that's helpful.
Thank you, Eliza.
Hey, everybody. I really appreciate this information about like the city channels. I think the other thing that we can think about as an HSAC is showing up at public comment, thinking about what other groups may have similar interests. I think there's some synergy and energy from the business community, thinking about solutions and what does that look like for us. So I think that's something else to think about that I'm not sure how much we've leveraged in the past, but I do think that there is community energy that could be brought together with this more formalized effort and description of what our hopes are, to have community kind of back what we're saying as well. And that takes work and takes work early. So I'd be happy to show up and do that type of speaking at public comment and also sharing with other folks who are neighbors or who are in other sectors who have similar interests in caring for our unsheltered neighbors.
Thank you. Commissioner Carter?
Yeah, I would just, first of all, thank Manager Page for laying out the process that the city follows, and sort of the timeline. Ours is very similar, I would say. And I really agree with Eliza about the importance of following up any official HSAC request, which will carry its own gravitas and is very essential with, coupled with community members, other, members of HSAC coming and speaking at public comment, sending emails to city council and county commissioners. And I would encourage some contact from HSAC with the county administration in order to get on the agenda, which would be sometime probably in May, in order to be there to present some information to the county commission during the sort of final meetings of budget deliberation. It's somewhat frustrating, but every year there are things that are added at the end and sort of get onto the agenda at the end, and they may get funding just because they're sort of the last things to show up. Or some departments, the commissioners may have requested, we'd like to hear from those, and that can be helpful. So just another sort of potential step to consider taking.
Okay. Sharita, there's a few questions in the chat. Are the county and city budget timelines published for the public? Maybe that's a Colin.
That's a common question.
They both are.
Yeah, okay.
They both are. They may not, ours is not published yet. I don't believe I've seen it yet anyway. So,
Yes.
but it will be.
The city's budget process is actually on, it was approved this past Monday night in terms of the calendar. So it is part of the record at this time.
Samantha?
I'm hearing from budget that, and I put this in the chat as well, that requests will be taken early February of 2025 for the county. Sorry, I'm from the county. And the budget calendar is not published yet, is not finalized yet, and so is not published to the public yet.
Ross?
Just a quick follow-up on the county piece. Is there a designated person within the lead agency that remains in regular contact with a designated person in the county? I mean, the ILA assumes that the lead agency will be that connector, even though it is embedded within the city. But it sounds like we're doing a little bit of discovery today of the county process
Yes,
together, which is great. It makes me wonder who the designated liaison is from the city.
that would be me and Samantha. And we meet every other week and work on issues and talk through sort of coordinating this and looking at budgets. And that's kind of on our next, we meet next week. So that's one of our topics, is looking at what city's doing, what county's doing, and trying to do a better job of coordinating resources. Because for a long time, the right hand and left hand don't always know what we're doing. So we're trying to sort of put all the cards on the table and say, where are we both putting money? And if we're both putting money, not we, like the lead agency, but if the city and the county are both putting money into projects, are scopes of work similar? Are they different? Are we having the same expectations of folks, to sort of better align and better track outcomes, and making sure that are we getting the returns for the money that are going into projects? Are we getting the results that we hope to see?
Colin, excuse me, I'm assuming this question is for you. Has the city budget been already approved? Has it been approved?
No, and the city manager Page has her hand up, so I'll let her take this. Go ahead,
Okay.
Manager Page.
So thank you. Thank you, Colin. So I really raised my hand because the city, most people here know that the city's budget is from July 1 of any calendar year through June 30th of the next year. So it is a fiscal year, not an annual budget like from January to December. So as we sit here in November, the budget that was adopted in June is in process. So what we are working on now, or beginning to tool up to work on, is the budget that will be approved in June of 2025, and that those initiatives will begin in July of 2025 and go through June 30th of 2026. So I did want to say that there's a city council budget request that the mayor and each member of the city council gets to develop and present to their colleagues priorities that they have in a city council budget request process. And with the budget event schedule that the council adopted at their last city council meeting, those requests from the mayor and council members will be due Friday, January 17th of 2025. So that is a key date, because that date will be the date that council members will be advancing their priorities to be discussed among each other and prioritized among each other. Then that, connects to the city's, administration's budget as well. So while there's a full schedule, I did want to say in this meeting that the council budget request this year will be due on January the 17th of 2025.
Sharita, go ahead.
So that means that we really need to have our ask formulated in December in preparation for January, so that we can disseminate that to somebody, city council. I don't know, do we submit it directly to our rep on HSAC, or Colin, do you send that formally? Like, how does that process work?
Sure. So yes, we need to have a recommendation coming in December. Then that'll come out of policy and planning to the full HSAC. The HSAC, assuming they agree with the policy and planning recommendation for funding, would make a request and a motion for the chair to submit a letter of request to the appropriate governing boards. The lead agency sort of takes the lead on drafting the letter, and we would get the chair, currently Ms. Ross, to sign off on the letter. She would sign the letter, and either she would send it or we would send it on her behalf, copying her to the relevant parties. Historically, it's gone to all city council members, all county commissioners, as well as city manager and county manager to be considered. And obviously Samantha would be included on that as well. And then we would and then after that's submitted, we would, the HSAC would be made aware of that. And then the HSAC, as I think Eliza shared, could go and advocate at public hearings and be part of public comments, or could also just email, as Commissioner Carter recommended, reaching out directly to elected officials via email, phone calls, or when you bump into them at the coffee shop.
Russ,
Okay.
thought you
So,
had-
I'm
I was
sorry.
just going to affirm.
Can I finish?
I think that
Ho-
where we start advocating more is critical. As somebody pointed out to me, the advisory in HSAC is not, our job is not advising the lead agency, it's holding the lead agency accountable. Our job is advising the council and the commissioners and others on this. And I think sending a letter is great, but and necessary, but I think us being much more active in promoting these pieces in support of the work the lead agency does. But the AN advisory is to those two bodies very much.
Sharita?
I would just add that makes December's policy and planning meeting even more important, so that we make sure that we get a full ask. So again, we want to see your face in policy and planning. We want to hear your voice in policy and planning, because we want to get the ask right.
Samantha, I think I saw your hand raised.
Yeah, this might go without saying, but just getting the letter out on the city's timeline, even if it is in advance of the county's timeline, is beneficial to the county, because the more we can just plan, it's only beneficial to HSAC. So just voicing my support of that timeline that Colin was noting below.
Thank you. Sharita, do you have anything else? You have about 6 minutes left.
I don't have anything left else left, unless anybody has any questions about anything.
Any other questions?
Hi, yes. I was gonna ask, for the policy planning meeting, do we provide suggestions at that meeting and produce evidence of, because I'm aware that everyone here is aware of the homelessness. And I think that it's becoming, I don't know the proper word to use, but when you go to dinner and there's a homeless man sleeping at the federal government building, when does that, how can we, I don't even know where to start to address that, but I see, it's just not a place where you would find people sleeping on a federal government building. And I want to know, how can we contribute to saying that there is an urgent need? There's several not-for-profit organizations that are abusing and misusing their power due to the homelessness of our citizens. So how do we provide an urgent need for state-funded government shelters that are regulated by the state to avoid these organizations from practicing modern-day slavery with our residents?
So if I understand, Dorothy, if you've got, so we're looking at city and county. If we're talking state, that's a separate budget process. But if we're talking city and county, if you've got some suggestions or something, the policy and planning had asked the lead agency to come back at the December meeting and send out some stuff ahead of time with some suggestions of options, sort of a menu of, based on the priorities, here are some solutions that would meet these priorities. Here's the costs. Here are the numbers of people that could be impacted by it. It's not tied to a specific organization. It's just, hey, here's X number of dollars to help X number of people who are unsheltered while they're unsheltered. Here's X number of dollars to provide, rental assistance and supportive services in a creative way to help people exit homelessness. Here's a solution and a cost for setting up a expanded emergency shelter, for instance. So if you've got ideas or suggestions on that, I would encourage anybody who has thoughts or ideas that you think would be good for us to be looking at while we're putting it together. Send it to openingdoors@durhamnc.gov, and we can sort of try and work that into our calculations so that we kind of bring together a menu, and we'll send that out to the committee for review prior to that December, I want to say it's December 9th meeting. Is that right, Sharita?
December 9th at from 10:30 to 12.
So the committee will have that information ahead of time, and we'll obviously walk through it in a PowerPoint during the meeting for folks who are not committee members to weigh in. And by the end of the meeting, we would have a solution at the end, or a resolution at the end to move forward with something.
Thank you. Sharita?
Yes, and so I would just like to add, just to make you aware, Ms. Harding. So we do have a state level advocacy body. That's the North Carolina Coalition to End Homelessness. And they do a lot of the state level work and advocacy around homelessness in the state of North Carolina. I do not know, like, if their meetings are open to the public or directly of ways that you can maybe speak to them and inform them to have your voice heard at the state level. But I would definitely encourage you to look, to check them out. They were originally in had an office in Wake County. Their office is now in Durham County on University Drive. So I would encourage you to connect with the North Carolina Coalition to End Homelessness if you are interested in doing work to help our state be more progressive in their response to homelessness in the state of North Carolina.
Thank you, Sarita, for always empowering us. Thank you. Are there any more questions? I have about 9 seconds left with Sharita's time. Okay. All right.
I added NCCEH's website to the chat. If anybody needs to get that, it is there.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any announcements from HSAC or COC members? Any announcements?
Just a very quick announcement. We are shifting the date of pit count. So we are actually going to move to Monday. Get it on your calendars. Monday, January 27th. This will allow us to better be in sync with some of the service-based counts that happen through the week, including the free store at Open Table. So we're trying to get that. We're going to be sending out placeholders. Save the date, excuse me. Save the dates here fairly soon, but we just got that date set. Commissioner Carter, I know that that overlaps with a commissioners meeting. And the commissioner's been very good at participating. I know even though you'll be done, you'll be getting an email for sure. But we will reach out and probably ask for help with one of the service-based counts because we know that the commissioners have been great about participating and learning with us. So we'll accommodate that. But we just wanted to this helps us really line things up better for the counts through the week. So we appreciate the feedback from folks, and we're going to move it to Monday and say Monday, Monday, Monday in bold letters for the next 2.5 months. So everyone doesn't show up on Wednesday. So.
Okay, Thank you, Russ. Are there any other announcements? Okay.
Me, Madam Chair. So I just want everybody under the sound of my voice to hear this. Social Security offices nationwide will no longer be accepting walk-ins effective January 1st, 2025. It will be by appointment only. Also, I would like to let you know that North Carolina is the pilot state. So right now they are only allowing Dyer folks to walk into the Social Security office without an appointment to get those services. So that it even includes getting a Social Security card. This will definitely impact our clients as we move them towards getting housing, because oftentimes our folks don't have their Social Security cards. And the process was already complicated, and now we don't know what those appointment schedules are going to look like and how timely folks will be able to get their Social Security cards. So I would definitely encourage, what my contact at Social Security told me was that this week, some people, they have been allowing some walk-in traffic, but she did not think that it would continue after this week. So this is huge for us and how we serve our folks. The only other way to kind of navigate the Social Security world is to get an online account. And that is a tedious process as well, because you don't just sign up one time and it's done. You have to sign up. They have to send you a letter with a little special secret code. You have to wait for that. And then when you get the secret code, you then have to go in and put all the old information that you put in before and the secret code in order to get that account to work. And you need to have an email address. So we all know that a lot of our folks don't have emails. So I just want to make sure that I make you guys aware that that huge change is happening for our people in the very near future.
Sherita has a question. How do they set an appointment? Please, can you share with us? Is there anything that you have that you can share to the group?
I think I got an email with it. I know that you can either do, you can, of course, they're gonna try to direct as much traffic to online scheduling of appointments, because I think if you have a Social Security account, you can go in and do it that way, but you have to go through the tedious process of getting my Social Security account. The other way is to call the 1-800 number and you just wait, which is the national line. Let me see if I can put that link in here.
Okay. Thank you. While Sherita's doing that, are there any other announcements?
Yes, Ebony, if you don't mind, I mentioned earlier that Performance Management Committee members would be meeting with providers to discuss performance-related metrics for 2025. So I just wanted to call out those dates and times of the office hour sessions in case there were providers here that missed the last meeting. It'll be this Friday, November 15th at 9 a.m., November 20th at 3 p.m., November 22nd at 9 a.m., and December 3rd at 11 a.m. You don't have to come to all of them. You can come to one or more. You're certainly welcome at all, but the idea is that there will be progress between the 4 meetings to come up with a great consensus for the next performance management meeting. So if you have any questions or would like an invitation to those, just please put your email in the chat before you log off today, and we will get you invited to those performance management office hour sessions with providers.
Thank you. If there are no other announcements.
One announcement, sorry. Life Skills Foundation will be celebrating our 10-year anniversary with a Jingle Jam on December 6th at 7 o'clock. And so we'd invite you all to come. Tickets are $50. There'll be an open bar and a DJ. It should be a lot of fun. And if you get them by Friday, they're $40. And so I will put our website link in the chat, and there's a link on the website to get tickets. So we hope that you all will come celebrate with us.
Thank you, Ms. Bell. That's exciting. Happy 10 years.
Thank you.
So Madam Chair, I tried to cut and paste the email that they sent us in, but it was more than the chat could handle, so I just cut it short. So
Okay.
the first link is the like the little message that we got today with that effective date of 1/6, but I am letting you know that my rep at the Durham office told me that North Carolina is the test state that is already testing this now actively. And then the link under the bottom is the ways that you can access the appointment process for Social Security.
Okay. I don't know if I like it. Okay, thank you. I don't wanna, anyone else have any questions? Not questions. Anyone have any announcements? If not, I'm gonna share the reminders, and then I'm gonna give you back 30 minutes. So the next executive committee meeting is the first Friday, December 6th, from 10 to 11:30. The next policy and planning committee meeting is the second Monday, December the 9th, from 10:30 to 12. The next performance management committee is the second Thursday, December the 12th, from 10 to 11:30. And the next full exec meeting is December 18th, from 3 to 4:30. I would like to take a motion to adjourn our meeting.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Thank you,
Move
Reverend
to-
Bond.
This is Eliza. I will second.
Second. Thank you. You all have a wonderful evening. Thank you for your work.
Thank you.